Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Vidor Locksmith Show, where we are unlocking the secrets to success in the oil and gas business. Thank you guys so much for joining us on this Thursday morning. We are doing it a little bit different this week. We've just finished up the DSATs drilling section. I'll let you explain it. We just finished
drilling systems technical section.
Drilling systems automations technical section with the SPE. Just had a 2-day conference last week. So last week we had Mark Anderson on. We were talking about and previewing what was going to be taking place. So today we've got another one of the guys that's very involved with that organization. John de Wardt, thank you so much for being here with us today. I appreciate it.
Thanks for having me.
So anybody that's out there watching, please let us know where you're watching from, what company you represent, who you are. We'll be more than happy to be able to give you guys a little bit of a shout out. Also, as we're going through the show, please be sure to ask your questions. If you got any other comments or stuff, that we'll try to be able to get to as many of them as we can. I know I've got a whole bunch of questions lined up for today, so like I said, thank you guys for joining us. We've already got a handful of people watching. I've already gotten the text messages that I believe are saying that they can hear me. So I'm going to double check just because Eric Allen's really good. Good audio and picture. Thanks, Eric, who's over there at Dynaqual. He's always helpful with watching the show and everything. So, all right, guys, like I said, let us know where you're watching from. We really like to know what kind of reach that the show's getting. So we've got Ali Musadek saying from Houston, Oscar saying representing Colombia and Argentina. I don't know how you're in both places at the same time. Mark is saying my volume is okay, and John is a bit low. So John,
I'm gonna whisper.
So we'll jump right into it. You're in town, or we were. The DSATs meeting was in San Antonio. So tell us a little bit about what is DSATs and what were you doing in town for that?
So DSATs is the Drilling Systems Automation Technical Section of SPE, and Mark Anderson, who's on there, is the current chairman. I've been a board member for almost 5 years. And before that, I was program chairman for 3.5 years, organizing symposiums and things. The workshop was an SPE Advanced Technology workshop, 2 days, and it was organized by DSATs members. So it was all around drilling systems automation and a lot around data. And
yes.
Very, very interesting. So I think it was very successful. We had a very large turnout. I think 129 before the doors closed, which is above the maximum normally, so they were able to accommodate the extra ones. I think there was a lot of high-value information, a lot of up-to-date presentations on what's happening. So what's happening with the transition of the humans as companies roll out automation. So we had the view from a drilling contractor, a view from an operator, and then a view from a major service company doing a much more holistic approach than most other people are. We got into discussions about data, and we saw views on how data is being moved through the cloud, the lovely buzzwords, right? The cloud and the edge. Yeah, data in motion, data at rest. Those are new ones.
Yeah.
So that was very interesting, and to see how the operators and different companies are doing it, I thought one of the big highlights for me, and I asked a question about it and got a few whispers afterwards, was everybody, if you map it out, it seems that all the participants in drilling are building applications, and they are processing data. So they're writing the software to do analytics on data. And then you see that a drilling contractor is doing it because they want to improve. You see a service company is doing it because they want to improve. And then the operator's doing it. So it seems like everybody's trying to process all the same sort of data, all in parallel. And you begin to wonder where the efficiency of doing that is.
Yeah.
And then, of course, you've got the data quality, which is a major issue. I mean, some is very good, but some is awful. And unfortunately, the data doesn't have what's called metadata with it, so it doesn't actually tell you how good or how bad it is. So there's a lot of tidying up to be done in terms of the quality of the data, and there's big opportunities there. And I think there's going to be some transition as to who is actually processing this data and who is using the processed data in the end.
Yeah, I've seen it through my career as far as in oil and gas that at one point in time it was like, oh, now we can capture this digitally. We can digitally record this data into a tool, computer, whatever it may be. And then down the road, then it's like, oh, okay, now we can download all of this and just throw it in here and put it into Excel sheets. And then it's like, oh, well, now we could put this with this and put it into a bigger database. And then it became, well, now we can start doing analysis and machine learning and all these other things. But everybody ever went back down the food chain to go like, okay, this data that we're capturing at point A, are we qualifying, like, are we digitally recording that to be able to make sure, one, it's good data before it continues on, or should it just be deleted or have some kind of tag with it that says what it is, if it's good or if it's bad. And so everybody's just started collecting data for collecting data purposes, and then now everybody wants to use all that data, and it's like, oh wait, now we got to go back and make sure that we have good quality, clean data. So
yeah, I think it's interesting because AWS, so Amazon Web Services, and Microsoft and these people process tons of data. But if you go and look at the data they're getting, they're measuring it, and it's accurate sort of data. Your phone is on or off. You're in this location or you're not. You ordered this product or you didn't. It's very digitized. It's very accurate. Our data and our sensors were never set up for doing this kind of process. So we need to backtrack into that and say, are they good enough? Yes or no. And where they're not good enough, we ought to look at what's it worth to spend some money to make them good enough such that you don't have garbage in, garbage out. You actually have good data in and therefore good data out. The alarm bell for me is that it's very easy for programmers to make wonderful graphics. And wonderful graphics always look like high accuracy. You go and look at a wellbore survey, and when it's a single line, we know it's not. It should be a very fuzzy line because of the uncertainties around that position. And if the graphics actually showed the uncertainties, you'd have a very blurry screen that you were looking at.
Yeah.
So, yeah. And there are initiatives underway. I mean, there's the operators group on data quality that is looking at it from the operator's perspective with input from OEMs and drilling contractors and service companies to build a specification around what do they want to see in quality of data. And now I was just on the call with the IDC Sensor Stewardship Group, which falls under IDC Advanced Rig Technology Committee, and their DCS subcommittee, which is the Drilling Control Subcommittee. And now there's a working group which has a large cross-section of people from all different aspects of the business, and quite a few from Europe, not just the US, in on this, looking at how to develop some guidelines that would enable people to run the current sensors as well as they can be run. And it's not just the sensor, it's the sensor, it's the compensation, it's the transmission, it's the frequency of the data, it's the averaging or the smoothing, and what's actually happening in those steps so that the user can really see what they're getting.
So obviously those were some of the highlights. What was one of the big highlight presentations for you, having been at the DSET? What was the one that really kind of struck you?
I'm totally biased.
Oh,
I was co-chairman of 2 sessions. So yeah, so
That's fine. You can be biased.
I'll be very biased. I think the systems architecture and systems engineering. So there were 3 presentations on that in one of the sessions, and then there was the systems engineering presentation from Southwest Research over the lunch. I think we're beginning to realize that systems engineering has a place. It is being used, right? Has a place in our business, and it's appropriate. So it needs to be scaled right. And if we apply systems engineering, verification and validation, we can solve a lot of problems about the quality of data that we're getting. Systems architecture, the debate has now started that what is the solution of systems architecture so that the industry, which is very complex, right? We are very complex when we compare to other industries. So the industry can actually organize the most effective way to deliver the result of a constructed well that does what it's supposed to do and has the right quality and longevity, etc. And the problem is the contracting structure doesn't match the right way to do it. And that's how the business is driven, by the contracting structure. So if we can actually come up with a common architecture, then everybody can know where to play. And when they know where to play, they can know how to deliver in value, which is very important for automation, because you have to close a loop in order to deliver a result. And if you know where your system is, or your subsystem, or your system of interest is, and you play in that, you can contribute to the whole and you can be effective. If you're not able to participate in a loop that you can close, you're going to have great difficulty in delivering value in the whole chain. The other one, I think, was the humans aspect, and a lot of people have looked at that. Unfortunately, from the DSA roadmap, we put into it this levels of automation taxonomy. It's a matrix. It goes back to 1978, with Tom Sheridan, the 10 levels of automation. It was then developed further by him and one of his colleagues, and then it's been picked up by CESAR in Europe, which is a European aviation initiative. Everybody who's anybody in aviation in Europe is involved, and it's about taking commercial aviation to higher levels of automation. And they are looking very seriously at the interaction of the pilot and air traffic control and the humans in that aspect. And then you get the 4 cognitive functions of acquire, assess, decide, and then act. And you start to understand the levels of automation you can get to, and it forms a fantastic mapping tool. And so the presenters we had really started to adopt it, and we're using it to show in advisory mode, where you have levels of automation in the first stages, but you advise the driller decides, he takes manual action. Or as you move to the automated mode, that you actually graduate up the cycle and you close the loop. I mean, we've seen it with directional drilling. It's been advisory mode. You see how the driller reacts. After a period of time, he gains confidence because you've improved your algorithms to match and make him satisfied with it. When you get to that point, boom, you close the loop, and now he stands back into supervisory mode. So that for me is, hearing what people have done, I think there was a lot of lessons to take away from that.
What was really interesting based on what you just said was where Hess talked about how once they closed that loop and then they reintroduced the human back into that element, and then the human then outperformed the automated system, and then brought it to like another level, and then so that was kind of one of the things I was going to ask you about, is like the overarching theme I kept hearing is like, you don't want to take the human away. You can't really, and some people were saying, well, you can't replace the human, and then some people were saying like, you don't want to replace the human because there is that element of the human being able to come back into the role and then being able to outperform the machine, and then it makes the machine better, and then it becomes this.
Yeah, I mentioned Toyota, and Toyota have taken some robots off the line and put a human back in, because the human will improve and the robot won't. So when the human improves the process, you put the robot back in. So you can do this switch in automation, so allow the human to get back in the loop in order that they can improve it, and then take it into the automation, because then you take it from one rig, you take it across multiple rigs, if it's a repetitive process, whether it's by the rig activity, whether it's by the directional drilling activity, or whether it's by the field activity. You can take it and expand it. That way you move everything up.
Wow.
The other thing is adaptive automation. So, the big issue is... Go ahead, tell us. Well, the big issue is if the human's sitting there twiddling his thumbs, so the rig's drilling away, and suddenly something happens, right? And the system says, you have to have control, and he goes, what? So adaptive automation is actually a way to give back some of the workload to the human, so the human is participating with the automation. But when the issue comes up that the human must manage, that the automation won't manage, the automation takes back those routine tasks that are given to the human, and now the human is fully situationally aware because he's been involved, so he can step into that emergency mode.
Wow. So, real quick, I want to read off some of the people we've got watching because we've got a lot of people all around. So, obviously, Mark Anderson, Kevin Wong from Denver, Victor from Nigeria, Eric in North Houston, Dynaquil, Ray Pereira with the guys at Pulse Directional says hello to John.
Hi, Ray.
Travis in Houston with Bico, Oscar with Baker Hughes, John Rabin with National K-Works. Wow, we got a bunch. And then Eric says, in quotes, wonderful graphics always look like good data, in quotes, and little laughing face. Mark asks, in due course, ask John about in 1981, Wolf and de Wardt introduced an alternative method of determining wellbore uncertainty by suggesting that most surveys errors were systematic. Oh, yeah, he just had it ... Yeah, so tell us a little bit about that.
The Wolf and de Wardt systematic error model. Yeah, so back in, I joined Shell in '76 and went on the Shell courses for 6 months. So it was a mechanical engineer. I came into Shell, got all the education on petrophysics, drilling engineering, facilities, reservoir, etc., geology, whatever. And then I worked on onshore rigs and offshore rigs for about a year or so. And after that, I got pulled in the office and stuck on a project. And the project was resurveying the Groningen gas field because there was some alarm about the ability to drill relief wells with the old, mostly single shot surveys. So we started resurveying with gyros, which was an upgrade then. And then I was working with Chris Wolf from the lab. So the two of us teamed up, worked together, and we did a lot of research into the accuracy of gyro surveys back then, Sirwell gyros, free gyros if you want to call it that, magnetics. And Chris was a measurements guy and I was the guy with the operational experience, and we kind of married together, didn't tread on each other's toes too much, but teamed up. And yeah, what our observation were there were significant systematic error models. And the Wallstrom model from 1950s where error models were random. And so therefore, after 100 surveys, your errors would have cancelled out. So it's kind of like a drunk guy walking down the street versus a guy with one short leg. You know, the drunk guy, he sort of gets home, but the guy with one short leg careers off to the right and, you know, falls in the Dutch Canal or whatever it is. So, yeah, it was significant. And then the alarm bells went off because you couldn't drill relief wells. And everybody sort of thought, oh, a relief well is quite easy to drill. And then from that, you know, Shell pushed to have some change, and then companies were formed. I mean, Shell put $1 million into gyro data. Those are fun times.
Wow, I didn't know that they put some money into them.
Oh, yeah. Well, the gyro data guys had started and then asked us to come and have a... Am I allowed to say names here? Yeah, of course. So Chris and I went with the senior manager, Ryan Escher from The Hague. We went to California and we went to look at this lovely little gyro that was used in the cruise missile. And basically these guys, Incasim, took the gyro, worked with gyro data and converted it into a rate gyro, if I can remember my terms correctly, so it could measure Earth and find out where north was, and they built that first tool. And then other people start building sophisticated tools as well. So that was a big change.
Wow. Lots of history there. Shell investing in some fun projects.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, those were great days. We tested Marvin Gearhart's first MWD in Holland.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, Marvin came across, talked to Ruben Feenstra, who was the head of research down in the labs. Teleco was already up and operational. As most people know, Teleco was very successful. I mean, if you ever looked inside a Teleco tool, it was a wonderful piece of machinery. Big deal was they were charging rates that were sort of the equivalent of savings of rig time. So, of course, the operator said, well, we need something else. And Marvin came across and showed his tool and his concept, and Shell said, yeah, test it. We'll test it in Holland. And so I was the guy responsible for going to the rig and taking Munro Knight, great guy, really good guy, and the tool, and then we ran it in. And I showed up at the rig, and Hank, the tool pusher there, he said, I had a phone call. I said, well, what phone call? He said, I've been told to let you do anything you want. I said, okay. I knew Hank, he was a real nice guy. So we're drilling, tools in the ground. Munro starts looking really worried and says, something's not right here. I said, what is it? He says, I think the tools failed. I said, well, no worries. Well, we'll have to wait until they're going to trip the pipe and then we can fix it, but it's going to be some time. I said, no, I just go tell Hank we need to get the tool out. And Munro said, you can do it. I said, yeah, he got a phone call. So I went to Hank and I said, Hank, the tool's failed. We'd like to take it out of the ground, trip it out and repair it. Hank said, no worries. Started trip.
Oh, getting a phone call here from somebody.
Those-
Sorry, whoever's calling me. Can't answer it right now.
I mean, those were the good days when you could really go do some testing and things.
And that was the beginning of MWD failures.
No, it was the beginning of MWD success. Come on. Munro fixed it on site. He got in the tool, fixed it, and we ran it back in the ground and drilled with it. It was good.
Wow. I can just imagine that's like, I always, because having the MWD background, I'm just like, oh, and that's where it began, like having to trip out.
You're supposed to talk about the positive things, isn't it?
Well, Hank, the positive was this, Hank was like, yeah, sure. He was open and optimistic to the new tool. And
he got the phone call.
and I mean, Marvin Gerhardt had a wonderful career, and condolences to him and his family and whatnot, because he passed recently this year.
Right.
But I mean, obviously, a lot of contribution to the industry and people that I look up to. He mentored and stuff. So obviously, hearing the stories about that are, that's phenomenal. So we've had a lot of. I've got a couple of other questions that have come in here. So Mark, thank you for your question and appreciate you being on the show last week. Question from Ali, who's a drilling solutions manager. He says, quality data. Don't you think that Energistics should come up with a QC standard, as they are forcing standards on WITS and WITS-ML? Another question about technical background of their members. I'm not sure if that's technical background of DSET members or of WITS-ML or the Energistics group. But
well, Energistics, so if you look at WITS-ML, it actually has a block in it for metadata. So it's an unstructured block. So people can put metadata in there, and metadata is data about data. So the easiest way to describe metadata is when you take a digital photograph, you can go look at the data, and it says what was the f-stop, what was the speed, etc., etc.
Location.
Yeah, location
time.
Does come with it. Yeah, time, date, all those things. That's metadata. It's data about the data. When you know the metadata, you can handle the data a lot better, because the metadata might tell you when the sensor was last calibrated, where it's actually positioned. Dynamics, as John McPherson and guys have done papers on drill string dynamics, and it depends where you position the sensor in the sub downhole as to what kind of dynamic it is actually picking up. Is it torsional? Is it radial? If it's in or out from the center, you get those different bits of data. So the metadata is one of the first ways to do that. If you go and use OPCUA, it has structured metadata. So that's the way to go. We haven't adopted it, and we haven't set up a structure to say what should it be, but it's on every digital photograph.
And I will say this, Ali, is that as far as the members of WITS-ML or of Energistics, my company's actually a member of it. Some of the projects that we're working on. So I'm not going to say that we're not technically proficient, but they're not stopping anybody from joining. And companies like Microsoft, Amazon are also in there. So there's a lot that's going on with WITS-ML, ProteaML, and what was the other one? ResML. So there's a lot that's going on there, but there's also other ones. I think Schlumberger's got a format that they're working on as well. I can't remember.
That's in the open group. So Shell dropped their system for subsurface data into the open group, and that became a starting point for people to come up with a standard way of describing data from subsurface. And I understand that Schlumberger has then contributed theirs in there. So that's a working group on subsurface data.
So next one, so we've got Neil Bertram saying he's watching from Denver where the snow is melting. I started to watch my iPad.
Oh, ask him how my snow is.
We'll switch to PC to add comments. So Neil, be sure to ask plenty of questions. So from Oscar says, do you know about any research or system fully deployed aimed to fill directional driller role?
There's significantly high levels of automation being applied to directional drilling. So it's automated MWD, automated data acquisition, and in fact closing the loop back down to the rotary steerable tools. So yeah, that is happening. I mean, there was one of the presentations just 2 days ago, which was then announced by a major service company that this is what they're doing. So yes, very high levels, but the directional driller is now in supervisory mode. He's supervising over that system that's doing a lot of routine tasks that the computers can do for him.
Yeah. So he's still highly involved. And that was one of the other things we talked about a lot, was being able to take the experience of a knowledgeable person and being able to spread it out over multiple
So
locations.
when you bring a directional driller into the remote operating center, now he's supervising multiple operations. He can then share himself what he learns from one and put it into another. So you can upgrade everything.
Awesome. All right, well, guys, please let us know still where you guys are watching from, and if you have any more questions. So I'll jump in with another one here. How did you get involved with the DSAT group? How did that originate?
It must have been an accident. I think
that's for all of us now that are in it. And
no, so there were
subcommittee chairs.
Cha-ching. Yeah. There were a few guys who started it. It started out in an annual technical conference of SPE out in the West Coast. Then there was, in 2008, I think it was, there was a small meeting at a drilling conference in New Orleans. And I went along and somehow ended up becoming the facilitator or moderator for a session of 4 different speakers. And so I ended up moderating it, and then we had a lot of flip charts and work groups, and I ended up moderating that. I suppose people figured I could help out. And thereafter, I stayed involved. And as I said, I was program chairman for 3.5 years, and we got Rio Tinto to come and talk about autonomous mining. You know, we had a student from Berkeley show us his autonomous helicopter. Now, it may sound very simple, but he showed this very stable photograph, and then he backed away. It was flying upside down, completely stable. Oh yeah, very interesting things. We brought in outside speakers. We brought in Tom Sheridan. We brought in Mike Withers from Disney, courtesy of the connection of Houseman, who build a lot of roller coasters for Disney. So yeah, we've had a lot of outside speakers, and then the last 5 years I've been on the board, which, you know, it's volunteer work.
What would you say is your biggest achievement in being a part of that group?
I think my biggest achievement as part of that group is really the symposiums, because they started out as small things, and then we grew that. I led the team. We made a small subcommittee, and then I led the team, and we grew it to bringing in these big outside speakers. I mean, when 2 guys flew up from Perth, Australia to come and present in Amsterdam about their autonomous mining, you kind of go, whoa. Yeah, they came along because they thought we were ahead of them. They left knowing they were ahead of us. Yeah, they have a whole thing, Mine of the Future. It's autonomous mining. It's unbelievable what they do.
I am curious about that. How many times people in oil and gas get invited to other industries to be able to talk about what we're doing? Because all the events I ever go to, we're always inviting other people to come talk to us and tell us, you know, how they do it in their industries. So I'm curious if anybody within oil and gas is going the opposite direction on some of the
Four of us went to geothermal in Reno to their Geothermal Resource Council, and we put a presentation on. Yeah, myself, Fred Dupriest, Ford Brett, and Tony Pink. And we put on this presentation essentially about what they could learn to improve their drilling performance from oil and gas drilling. It was a huge hit, standing room only in the room, a big hit. Yeah, there's a big gap. There's a lot of opportunity to go and improve geothermal drilling. However, you have to recognize there are certain differences, such as live steam, very hard rocks.
That I actually had Fred on the show and asked him that question and asked him what his thoughts were on, as far as drilling practices, what the difference was. And he says it's 1-to-1. You know, drilling rock is drilling rock.
Yeah.
Whether it's for hydrocarbons, for, you know, river crossing, or for, you know,
correct.
Hot.
Physics-wise, yeah. their rock is hard, but also I've worked on 2 different projects drillers called it granite, but it was metamorphic rock, fractured metamorphic rock as a reservoir. So we drill hard stuff as well. So there's ways to transfer that across.
Excellent. All right, so I think we've got another. Thanks, Neil. I appreciate it. Okay, everybody's just talking. Y'all go talk amongst yourselves. Feel free. Like, y'all don't need to. We don't have to be involved with everything there. So obviously great stuff there with it as far as how far along the DSAT group's come. Obviously, a big contribution has also been the book or the ebook
roadmap.
or the roadmap. I'm surprised it's not an Amazon bestseller right now, but
We don't charge enough for that.
I guess if you have a free book on Amazon, I wonder if it can still be a bestseller.
Yeah, I don't know.
The best download.
We have our own website.
Yeah. Tell us a little bit about that. Tell us a little
So
bit about
we
the roadmap.
started out in 2013. A young man came up to me at the end of an automation session in Amsterdam at the drilling conference, and Mario Zamora, I was talking with Mario at the time. Mario was the session chairman, co-chairman, and this young man came up and said, the industry ought to have a roadmap for drilling systems automation. So I said, wonderful idea, why don't you lead it and I'll help you out. Whoa. Regretted that ever since.
Regretful comment.
We started out, and then we added on Ed Tovar. Ed's been working with us since 2012, 2011 or so. And Ed has brought to us people from Boston Dynamics, people from other high technology areas outside of oil and gas. Southwest Research, he brought those guys in as well. And so the 3 of us got together and said, okay, let's launch this thing. And we did. We launched it as an initiative. And my little job, very, very small job, was to go and, I'll probably get shot for saying this, but never mind, was to go and link SPE and IDC together for doing this. Because, I was brave back then. Because we felt that to do it properly, we needed to have representation from both organizations. And, you need the drilling contractors as well as the drilling engineers, etc. And some people play in both sides. Well, SPE were very clear to me that you'd have to go to the board to actually get this done, and that wasn't going to happen. And IDC said, why didn't you come to us first? So I said, okay. One month of blood all over the place. No, I said, look, simple. We'll just go standalone as an independent initiative. We'll do it ourselves, and we'll affiliate with everybody. So we became an affiliate of SPE, so SPE DSATs. We became an affiliate of IDC ART. Actually, IDC administered 3 workshops for us. So we organized the content. They organized everything else. So the finances, or the whole lot. We had one in Vienna 2014, one in Galveston 2014, one in Houston 2018. So if we'd been in one camp, we wouldn't have been able to use another camp to do stuff. Yeah. And then Ed brought on AUVSI, Southwest Research, and then later Energistics, and then OPC Foundation. So we actually had 6 affiliates with it. And yeah, we got going, and the young gentleman who brought up the great idea, after a year, he was transferred to South America, and he was in a different area of business, and his boss said, you can't work on that anymore. So one went away. And then Ed and I were talking about organizing. He said, John, why don't you run it like a DARPA project? Because he's been in DARPA, right? And I said, how's that? He said, well, the program manager. You're the program manager. I said, okay. So yeah, so I led the thing. We had a steering committee of 17 people. We did it all virtually, except for these workshops. We used to run these go-to meetings. We'd discuss things, lay out where we were going. We came up, in fact, after some discussion, it was John McPherson suddenly said, well, I can see these different areas that we should focus on. And so we'd agreed what those were. We handed them out, one person leading each one. Go find a team. You're not allowed to play on 2 teams at once because volunteers on 2 teams don't get much done.
Yeah.
And
I'm part of the ISCWSA, so yeah.
Yeah, and actually I added it all up, and the names are all in the document. 50 people globally contributed to the roadmap.
Wow.
And then we pulled it all back together. We found So late 2015, we found that it was getting very hard to get volunteers. The industry had changed. I'm talking to someone recently, he said, yeah, my boss told me I have to work on company stuff and don't go spend time on volunteer stuff. So there was a big change then. And so we said, okay, let's go get some money and do a JIP. So we went to the IDC Drilling Engineering Committee, organized or got approval for a JIP, and then raised money. $10,000. I don't recommend anybody goes to raise money. It's hard work. Anyway, so we did JIP 1, and at the end of JIP 1, I ran a workshop, presented for a whole day, and we discussed it, and we got feedback and introduced the first product to the JIP funders. That was April 2017. And then we did JIP 2 because everyone said, yeah, now we need to get this tidied up, taken to the next level from a draft, hire a technical editor, professional technical editor, so it turns into a high quality document that can go out publicly and not just a bunch of engineering language or whatever.
Yeah. And
so we raised the second set of funding, and many of the first funders came back and funded a second time, which was really good. That was, I was very positive when we saw those people say, oh yeah, we're back in. And then we produced it, and it went public in June 2019, and it's on a website dedicated to that whole thing. It's dsaroadmap.org. And if you go to dsaroadmap.org, you can download 14 sections, 325 pages of an excellent product. I haven't heard any complaints about it. I've heard positive things.
Was it just the survivor bias of who's made it all the way through?
Oh, no. People have read it. I've heard about one national oil company, I shan't say who, but the word I got was that the head of drilling or head of drilling engineering told all his staff, you have to read this. So it became compulsory reading.
Oh, wow.
In a country where when the top man says you do something, you normally do it.
That's usually how NOCs work.
Probably. Then actually, I'll put McPherson's name in there again. John McPherson said, hey, this has a lot of information about, current state, about what we're doing now. So it's a knowledge. And so you see Systems Engineering Body of Knowledge. You see PMBOK, Project Management Body of Knowledge. So quickly I grabbed a website for the industry, which is called DSA-BOK, Drilling Systems Automation Body of Knowledge. It's dsabok.org. And we set it up as a portal to everything. Well, it's not everything, but it's as much as we can keep going. Everything to do with drilling systems automation. So we have a steering committee that can vet things and what we're doing. And then we have a page of 1 Petro papers, so SPE papers, that we recommend and say, hey, these are the good ones to go read instead of search yourself. There's a couple of ASME papers. There's a section on drilling, IDC Drilling Contractor magazine. So what are good articles that have appeared in there? You click on the link. We don't publish it. We just say, look here, we recommend those. You see what it is. You say, I want to see it. Click. It takes you straight through to where the original article is. Excellent. There's another one on SPE JPT because they have good articles. There's a section on academia, which is universities, and each university has a page describing what they are doing. There's some other bits to it as well, but I forget everything that's in there. So if people want to find out about what's going on, it's there. There's a page for companies, and if companies want to give a paragraph to put on that page, send it in. We'll put it in there, just so people have a place to go, one-stop portal to get to information about drilling systems automation to help them learn, find out what's happening.
So how did it feel once that was published and live? Like, what was that day like for you?
Huge relief. Oh, I tell you, it was massive. I gotta be careful what I say, but I calculated out. I mean, what do you think it cost to make that? 325 pages, reaching out to 50 people globally, updating, so it's the second version, hiring a very competent gentleman from Austin, actually, who used to do Schlumberger's oil field review, technical editing, so he was highly recommended. He's a great choice. Having him all go through it, what do you think?
I think I heard a number when some people were talking about this, and I think it was like $350,000 or something. Like it was, as far as
I calculated, so I took certain people and said, okay, I believe you put these many hours in it, and I believe this is what your company's cost of you is, so loaded up for benefits, etc. My own costs, the time I dedicated to it originally, and then through the JIP, there was myself and some other consultants, and we all cut our rates for doing it. So we did it at discount for the industry. So we gave up quite a bit there. $800,000. And that's, well, it's not unusual. That's without valuing in any way at all the knowledge people put into it. And if you go and look at the knowledge in there and start to go, wow, you know, there's some real expert people put knowledge into this that is high value. It's way beyond $1 million, way beyond. And if you go and look, Ed again is my sort of go-to guy on that. If you go and look at Department of Defense and they do a roadmap, it's 100 pages, right? So they have a roadmap about interoperability, air, land, and sea. So all of these mission-critical devices must be highly interoperable. It's a wonderful roadmap to read. They update it every 2 years. They put down $1 million cash to get it done. They hire people to do it. It gets done in 2 years. We started out as volunteers, and then we scrabbled around raising money.
So I can definitely see how that was quite a relief to be able to have that done and put out there.
Yeah, anybody wants to go do it on something else, please.
Should they call you at that point in time to get any advice on how to do it?
If I see that call coming in, I'll probably be skiing. No, I got to get back to work, real work, you know.
So tell me, what are you doing now? Because obviously you're doing consulting.
Yeah, I do upstream global consulting. So I do strategic planning with a lot of companies. I have a process for doing that. So it's a methodology of working with the team. I go in a lot and interview people, and then I do a lot of gap analysis. Where are you now? Where could you be? I do that in operations from the field level down through well construction as well. Strategically, it's getting the team together and then, or the company people together, run a workshop and then define what is the value you deliver, what's your competitive advantage, and then what are the competencies you have that drive competitive advantage and value. And then I've got multicolored hexagons and color code the whole thing to what you have and what you should have. And then when you get to competencies, what you have, what needs improving, and what you need to add. And one time I had this chairman, I guess it was early 2000s, we were running this, and the chairman walked up to me and he said, now I get it. Looking at this color-coded hexagon diagram on a magnetic whiteboard. And he said, what do you get? Well, he said, my people tell me we're good at this, but we actually don't succeed. Now I see it, because we're sort of good at it, but we need to fix this and fix that. And then you come out with a strategic plan. And I've done it for specialist service companies. I've done it for major service companies. We've doubled revenues in a couple of years. And I did it for a project management company. I had a 10-year goal to go from 500 million to $1 billion, and they were sliding. They were down to 450 in year 2 or so. I ran this program. They strategically changed their business, and I think it was 2.5 years later they blew through $1 billion revenues.
Wow.
Then they got bored. They were very happy. And I have a lean drilling.
So have you added that to the contract that, like, if that happens, you know,
No, incentive contracts. Yeah, they're hard things to get going in this industry. No, I also have a program called Lean Drilling. So back in 1994, I took what I'd studied of lean manufacturing, Toyota production system, and put it into drilling. And my view was, I'd been with an operator globally, Shell, for a number of years. I'd been with a drilling contractor, Forosol Foramer. We'd done turnkey, lump sum drilling. We'd done incentive drilling. We doubled drilling performance and made a deal where we we got half the day rate saving, or half the burn rate savings from the operator, so we doubled our day rate on the days we did. It's a very nice contract. And
I think a lot of service companies need to move towards that right now.
Oh yeah, but it's very doable. It's a matter of formulating how you do it, and also we formulated it over 30 well programs. So it wasn't one well and they shift the goalposts. And after 10 wells, they tried to shift the goalposts. I said, here's the contract. And then I spent time leading a team to set up what's now called IPM at Halliburton. So I had that experience with Halliburton, but also with Brown and Root, which was very interesting. And so with that, I built this lean drilling program. So it's a way of going into an operator and then bringing everybody on board through a process of interviews, looking at gap analysis again, and then run a workshop to create an organization architecture that's way more effective than what they normally are, and then get people to focus on their delivery. And yeah, double drilling performance.
So do you
save 30% costs.
So do you think, as far as the lean drilling methodology, do you think that more drilling contractors, service companies, or operators would be the ideal people to be able to bring that in?
So as far as lean manufacturing methodology, everybody can bring it into their piece. If you understand what it is, be careful of buzzword bingo, right?
Yes.
Lean drilling is my methodology of doing a holistic program, and it needs to involve everybody. You can't go and do it with just the drilling contractor because there are other parties. It has to be everybody. You're focused on delivering the well, and then it gets everybody aligned to a common goal. I've actually done it in the North Sea with a couple of rigs that were in terrible shape, and one was about to be shut down by NPD in Norway. And after we did it, the guys on the rig kept doing what we'd developed that they could do in this methodology, and they became very successful. That rig came back around to another project later on for a different operator, which was an abandonment project that we did with the same methodology, and it had a fantastic performance record. And Bobby Davidson, the guy who was the tool pusher on it, said, "Oh yeah, we kept on doing what you taught us to do." So they were very successful. And then there was an old rig. We drilled a horizontal well offshore Norway from a floater, 25 years old. It kept breaking down all the time. And so with my associates in Norway, we ran the program, and in the workshop, we got all these guys from the drilling contractor together, no managers. They sorted out how they were going to make that rig run because they were tied to this big goal, and they felt part of the whole team and where they were playing. And yeah, we drilled a record well. We drilled it in half the planned time. We did the intelligent completion in half the planned time. We saved 33% on the well cost. That rig I saw 2 years ago. It's still running in Norway. Its name has changed slightly because of ownership. I saw it in a ranking. It was the second best operating rig in Norwegian waters.
Wow. That must make you feel good.
Yeah, well, when I met Bobby on the second time around, and he just said, yeah, we kept on doing what you taught us to do, I thought, well, there you go.
So what would you say is one of the biggest issues that a drilling group, like, so if you're going to implement lean drilling, what are some of the things that are common mistakes or things that you see over and over again within these organizations?
There's no silver bullet.
Well, I'm not saying what's the silver bullet, but what are some common themes? Or how about this? If somebody's listening to this now and they're thinking, oh, we don't need that, what would be the questions you would ask?
So fundamentally, the way the business is, and I have to separate here North America from the rest of the world, because North America is doing super performance, and I think anybody who pretends they can walk in there and make big step changes is fooling themselves. These guys have done it themselves, yeah. And I know some of them very well, and I know people up in the Northern Rockies have gone from 70 days a well 5 years ago, S-shaped 15,000-foot wells, to 8.5, right? And it wasn't the big operator was doing the 70 days. They saw they could get to 50 days, add a bit of technology, maybe get to 40-something. It was the small operator who got down. They worked closely together with their suppliers, and they really manage to focus them on a common goal. And they get together with them and they come down to 8.5. And the guy who was running that, I asked him, what next? He said, I think I can get another 27 hours. And, you know, it's happened all across North America where they tend to work together and they tend to trust each other. And you get this focus. I think there's the drilling managers are closer to the senior managers who are close to Wall Street. And every quarter they like some good news. So you need to knock out some wells, add some gas production, add some oil production, and it's very close to the guys executing. When you get overseas or in big operators, that connection's completely disappeared. And the big problem I see is that the contracting, the structure that comes out of contracting doesn't match the way the business should operate. So when I go in and do my lean drilling, the first thing I say, I get into trouble. I say, tear up the contract. The guy says, you can't do that. I say, okay, no, throw it out the window. Forget your contract. And then we reorganize ourselves into what we sort of termed a delivery-based organization. So what is it you do that contributes to the result that we've agreed is the goal of what we want to achieve? You know, it's the cementing guy. Cementing guy, he's not going there to pump cement, because if he has a bad job and he repumps cement, he's very successful. No, he's going there for zonal isolation. If you get his mindset on zonal isolation, you get a different result. Now, the contract doesn't say that normally. The contract normally says, well, how many sacks of cement, how many hours you pumped, how many people you had on site. So the contract's wrong. I'll tell you something I found, actually. Norway's a great place to work because the people are very family oriented, and the guys from university, they're so close, it's absolutely amazing. But anyway, it's a great place to work like that. And we started talking about payment schemes once, and, you know, should we add incentives onto this program where we're now beginning to get this performance through doing this transformation? And these guys say, oh, no, we don't want any of that. You can give us some money for our welfare fund so we can buy another hutter for all the people from the company to go to. Yeah, they're very family oriented. One thing I discovered there that came across very clearly, reputation. Everybody who is on a successful project, drilling project, loves to have the reputation that they achieved that. They were part of the team that achieved that. And yeah, everybody over there loves to have a t-shirt for the team in the summer or a sweater for the team in the winter. And the secretaries were very good at figuring out what time of year and what to have. And the joke was, you know, somebody said, oh yeah, I was on that team, it was really great. And everybody say, did you get the shirt? What shirt? Oh, you weren't on the team. That's why you have to give out team shirts, right? You know who was actually on the team when it's successful.
It's not just the bonus money, it's the
people in this industry, reputation. I think the shirt is the proof that, because everybody says they were on a great project, the shirt is the proof that you were actually on it or not.
Yeah, everybody say, oh yeah, I helped out with that. Like,
what's the logo on the shirt that we made?
yeah, it's like, where are you? I'll say this, I don't have any shirts, so obviously I've not been a part of anything successful enough to be able to make shirts for.
I got quite a few.
It's good. All right, so we've got Neil Bergstrom, the International Association of Directional Drilling has some past presentations on their website under resources. Here's the link. So, Neil, thank you for helping out and throwing some more stuff out there.
Oh, he knows all about borehole positioning.
Yeah, Neil is a magnetics genius.
Oh yeah, he was one of the key players in ISCWSA.
Yes.
Oh yeah, he's well known.
Yeah. He started up the Operators Wellbore Survey Group. So yeah, he's I know Neil very well. He's a great guy. So going forward, what are some of the things that you're looking at being able to do here in the near future?
What am I looking for? I'll just continue doing my business. I slowed down a year and a half ago because, well, my wife passed away. So I stayed. I went virtual and I stayed home. So of course my business slowed down with that. And yeah, now I'm ready and up and going anywhere I can.
What do you think are going to be some of the next big breakthroughs for the industry? What do you see coming?
I think so. Drilling systems automation is going to continue to advance, and I think it will become, shall we say, more holistic. So people who are playing in part of it need to understand the whole of it, so they know where and how they contribute within the whole. What is actually happening is way more than what is visible. It's when, at ATCE, you're in the network. I'm in the networking session and having a beer, and there's a couple of guys talking with me and chit chat, and one says something and the other says something else. You go, oh wow, that's almost commercial, and you kind of go, can't tell people that, Yeah. So yeah, there is a lot happening on, I think, process, algorithms, and technology that will keep this whole thing moving forwards. And I think people, if you don't believe it's really going to advance, you're going to be very surprised. Digitization, the big buzzword. I think eventually we will clean up our data. I think eventually people will figure out how to value, shall I call it, high quality data. It's data with the right attributes. So it's not just, what is quality. It's accuracy, it's proximity to where it is. I mean, we measure weight on bit around the back end of the rig. Yeah?
Yeah.
Sorry, weight on bit's like 10,000, 20,000 feet away. Yeah, come on. So if you start to look at those things and say, hey, we can get them right, I think that the industry will learn how to value that, and so the consumer of the data will be eventually willing to pay for it. Unfortunately, in today's environment, most people like to say, I need some of that, and I'm not going to pay for it. I mean, automation today is competitive advantage. It's not. There was a key guy who stood up a year ago at one of the DSAT symposiums, and he said quite clearly, we've invested $70 million, $100 million, no, $70 million, and we haven't got anything back out of it yet. People are doing it for competitive advantage. If you want your rig to run, you're going to have to show advancements in automation that bring benefits. Of course, the benefits go to the operator. And more people now are talking about the business model is broken. There are shifts. Directional drilling now is shifting more to some incentive schemes in North America. Bits went rental. Huh?
Yeah.
Can you ever imagine that?
Yeah.
And years ago, Andy Cicilla made a presentation from Hughes Christensen, and he showed this wonderful plot of the decline in the number of bits being sold. And he said, we have to have better and better bits in order to stay in business. So that transitioned, surprisingly, into a rental kind of market. So yeah, I think the business model will change, but it's going to take some time or some very senior people to stand up and say, it makes sense, we need to do it. Digitization, you got to understand it. If you're a drilling engineer and you don't understand digitization, you're going to have a tough time. But beware of data scientists. No, data scientists are great.
It's like so we bleep that out?
No, you can leave it in.
Just saying bad words.
I'll get an email probably noon today from someone who say, "What did you say that for?" No, data scientists have a lot to contribute, but an effective data scientist, in my view, works alongside an effective drilling engineer. And the drilling engineer needs to understand enough about the data science, the digitization, to gain the confidence of the data scientist so the data scientist can be effective. And I think when you have that overlap,
Pairing.
yeah, but you got to have some overlap.
Yeah, okay.
So you got to understand enough, because data scientists can do a lot with data, but when they don't have that hands-on experience of understanding how that data is generated, or the top drive torque, top drive torque's non-linear. Oh dear. So was it calibrated at the high end or the low end? Yeah. I mean, I attribute this to Michael Bahunek bringing that up in a discussion with the operators group. So yeah, there's big issues there. The maintenance guys in IDC maintenance committee understand a lot of this stuff, but unless people bring that information to the data scientists, they more playing with the data than using the data. And there's so many powerful tools they can run it. They can do cross plots and all sorts of stuff. And you kind of go, well, hold on a second.
Yeah, I think it was at the IADD event last week where somebody said, if you play with the data enough, it'll play you your favorite song.
Probably.
So there's a bit of that, at any point in time with the statistics, like, or data or whatnot. You can do just about anything you want with it. It's, what is the true goal and how accurate, or what's the quality of
statistics? Damn statistics, right?
So you had mentioned the changing business model, and I've noticed a lot of the changes within the directional drilling sector. How do you envision that business model going forward? At least within, I know U.S. land and international is a little bit different, but how do you see that kind of going forward? Do you think that that's going to have some drastic changes there as well?
That's a very interesting question. There's been a lot of development, right?
Yeah.
And also, I think looking at IADD things, and there are a lot of different companies, and the small smart players are coming forward and have a place in that space. And yeah, small guys are making some very nice innovations. I think if people sit back and look and say, hey, it's great how far we've come, they're going to fall off the edge of the cliff because they won't be looking for what's coming next, and there's a lot coming next.
Yeah. I've seen that with a lot of the operators that they've started to vertically integrate and be able to pull the directional drilling personnel more in-house to be able to, kind of pick and choose the best of the best and say, all right, tired of getting, different rig hands or always being promised the best. And then they kind of go and pick some of them and then put them in-house, whether it's remote or field superintendents or just specifically on their rigs. Do you see more operators kind of following suit with that?
I think that automation is going to continue ramping up. And as automation ramps up, then the directional driller moves into a supervisory role.
Yep.
And then he can go remote. When he's remote, he can sit in the client's office, which is a nice convenience because then he's closer, especially if he's working on positioning the well in the reservoir, or if he's working with production on the quality of the well. And then there's a big issue for the industry: define wellbore quality. Oh yeah. And tortuosity is not tortuosity alone is not the answer. And then of course tortuosity, you get into the big debate that if you're doing 30-foot or 90-foot surveys, and then you're using minimum curvature for dogleg severity, you've just smoothed it out mathematically. So you just, what's the term? Must be a polite term for that. But anyway, you just smooth the darn thing out. If you go to 1-foot surveys, you start to see much more reality. But then you get the effective diameter that people have come up with, and the effective diameter is very, very valuable for placing artificial lift systems in wells. Because if you can place it in a section where the effective diameter is large enough for that tool that's going in there, the pump that's going in there, you don't get side loadings on it. It'll last a long, long time. If you put it in a place where there's a small effective diameter, you get huge side loadings on it, the bearings wear out, you pull it out of the ground pretty quickly. So the wellbore quality is a huge issue, and the industry hasn't grasped how to define it and then how to value it. And it's not just tortuosity. So I think that's, if a directional drilling supervisor is sitting in an operator's office, and if he's talking to the production guys, the OPEX people, the people who complain about the cost of the damn thing the drillers gave him, then he can add value back through with his automated systems.
Do you think it would be beneficial for the company to start running more calipers? Maybe that could, wellbore caliper to be able to kind of determine.
I think you're looking for silver bullets again.
I'm not saying that would be the silver bullet, but at least that would. Because that's not a very.
What stock did you buy this morning? No, I think personally, I think that defining wellbore quality is complex. We don't We don't yet understand how to define it, if we're honest about it. I think it has multiple attributes to it, and I think it takes a very deep conversation between the end users of the wellbore. So it's the completions people first, because they're completing the thing, or whoever's installing the completions. And then it's the whole OPEX life. How long is it going to last, and what does it produce? I mean, wells that go up and down, you get sumping. I mean, Mark referenced that when he was here, right?
Yeah.
And that's, I know, a study went on at School of Mines, where I do some guest lecturing and things. So they have sumping going along on the wells, and then it does impact production. How does it impact production? How much is sumping? How do you correlate the downside of sumping with the upside of going up and bobbing up and down to get into more productive formation? This is, this is the unanswered question.
So they're going to start a roadmap to wellbore quality.
I think that there's a huge opportunity.
I'll be like
to
the one guy that recommends it and then
runs away.
It ends up in Argentina somewhere.
No, he went to Brazil actually. No, seriously, I think it's a huge opportunity to get the right people to sit down and talk it through. And maybe the best answer is an SPE forum, because then you spend 5 days brainstorming. And that's the time to really kick things around. There, Jeff Moss. Tell Jeff Moss if he's watching.
All right, Jeff Moss, you've been nominated to run the SPE forum.
He's the
wellbore
forum
quality.
focal point now in North America. So when he handed over being technical director, he told us he was going to continue in SPE leading the forums or organizing the forums. So.
Who else do you think we could nominate to be in to lead it?
John Clegg. John Clegg has written a distinguished lecturer paper, presentation on this topic. He's offering insight to the issue and multiple sources that have put forward parts of that issue.
Well, that'll probably be one of the good presentations to either go see or.
Well, after mine.
Oh, you have a distinguished lecturer?
Yeah, I got selected as an SPE distinguished lecturer for 2020-2021. Drilling systems automation is here. Propagation, pitfalls, and profits.
Wow. Can you give us a tidbit or a little taste of what that's going to be about?
It's exciting. No, it's I think it's some of the, so it's a bit about where are we now, which I think a lot of people in North America have a very good picture of, but globally I think it's an opportunity to share that with people, especially traveling around the globe for SPE. And then it talks, about the human's role, about the systems engineering or systems architecture. So it gives people insights to how it can be organized, and then looks at what's coming up. So, it's a 30-minute presentation.
So what was it like? What is the process to go through to become a distinguished lecturer for the SPE?
Very rigorous. Actually, it's having done it, and I've talked to other people who've done it, it is a very good process. So you start out, someone nominates you, you need to get a couple of people to write letters of support saying, this person is capable on this topic and they're able to present, etc. And then you have to submit your abstract, title and abstract and bio. And then you submit some slides, draft slides. And then they cull it from, someone might correct me, but like 200 plus people to 50. And then they hold a session in Europe and a session at the annual technical conference in Calgary this year. And the committee, there is a committee that does this, volunteers. And there's the organizers within SPE who administer the whole thing. And then you go and present, and you get 30 minutes to present in front of the committee. They got parallel sessions, they divide themselves up by topics. And it's very rigorous. And they actually give you support on the way. So if you get through the first part of the program, they then assign someone to help tutor you. They give you feedback. So the reviewers write down feedback on your presentations, and then the people who are advising you, tutoring you, give you that feedback, and then you work with them, and then you go through, and the presentation is the real where the rubber hits the road. You got 30 minutes. Don't do, my understanding, and they may say I'm wrong, is don't do 32, 33. And if you do, I saw someone do about 26, and they said you had more time to tell more.
So they really want it spot on.
I hit 30.00. I don't know how I did it. I just, I really focused on that time of delivery. I mean, when you go out there, you may be asked to deliver a longer version, but the SPE chapters are looking for, it's a luncheon presentation. Can you deliver a quality presentation that's exciting, that's informative, that's current to a broad audience globally? That's the real question. And it's a very thorough process. So out of the 50, I don't know, there's 30 plus got selected finally.
Wow.
But I actually congratulate the people who ran the process, the way they ran it, the methods they use. They have an online system for uploading the views and comments as they go along. It's very rigorous. I was a bit nervous.
So now that you are a distinguished lecturer, what do you just go on tour essentially, or is it you get to
cruise.
pick?
No. No.
Do you get to pick and choose when
you can actually decline certain countries to go to? You have that option, but basically there's 230, I think, chapters globally with SPE.
Wow.
The information is sent out at the end of this year about all the distinguished lecturers. The bio, the title, the abstract. The chapters select what they would like to have come and speak to them. That comes back to SPE, and then they start to build programs together. So they build travel plans where you can go to different ones. If there's one ball on its own, it's unlikely that it'll happen. But you can travel to the Far East and then go Kuala Lumpur, Singapore, Miri, Saigon, Ho Chi Minh City, sorry. And, then they make a little plan for that, and off you go, jump, 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 come home.
They pay for your flights and everything?
Yeah. It's volunteer, but they cover your expenses.
Okay. I thought before you had to cover your own expenses. I was like, golly.
No. SPE.
Or whoever
it's actually the SPE Foundation pay for it.
Oh, okay.
And what I've discovered going to the foundation lunches is what I saw on the listing is most of the foundation money comes from individuals, and a lot of them are in what's called, I think it's the Sigma Club. Individuals donated $10,000, and there's a whole long list of them. So it's actually funded by a lot of individuals, SPE members.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it's quite, when you see that list, you kind of go, ooh.
I look forward to seeing the list of all the distinguished lecturer events that are
They'll be coming out. Yeah, I think it's I'm going to say December the 15th they'll be coming out.
I'll have to look for that.
Yeah.
Because obviously there'll be more items in drilling as well. So.
Yes. So there's John Clegg's, I can't remember. There's a couple of there's one on dynamics. I must thank Dr. Eustace at School of Mines and Kurt, because I went with my presentation and I gave it to them because I'm a guest lecturer at School of Mines and I'm also a PhD advisor. I'm on third PhD guy now as an external advisor, my volunteer stuff. But I went there and they said, okay, present it to us, and I was in a lecture room. Present it to us and we'll treat it like a thesis. We're going to give you feedback.
Oof.
And I did it in 32 minutes. And I think it took an hour and 20 for the feedback. Yeah, it was the best thing that happened to my presentation, I can tell you, because they went from little things like you got 4 bullet points and one has a full stop at the end. Well, people look at that and go, wait, why you got a full? They stop listening to you. To other things like, well, if you use that example through this whole story, then it would be more understandable. So you started with it, but you didn't continue. So they gave me, I had pages I wrote down and I ticked the box on everything.
Wow.
Yeah, they helped me a lot. Thanks, guys.
So anybody that's looking forward to doing the Distinguished Lecturer program within the SPE, one, it's a very honorable recognition to be able to achieve, but then also, if you're looking to do it, this is kind of the process, and somebody to possibly reach out to for advice, as well as if you also want to write a roadmap.
The roadmap tells you the process we took to write the roadmap. That was interesting because we researched roadmaps.
No.
Oh, yeah. There's roadmaps out there, a lot of DOD, even one DOE one, but lots of different industry roadmaps, none around the drilling business. And so we looked at those and then found out that Sandia National Laboratories had declassified their process for writing roadmaps. And so we took that and then we worked through the declassified document and modified it for our purpose, and that's what we followed. So the roadmap wasn't just guys messing around. No, it was a structured process. We should have done it if it had been funded right up front, fully funded, people being paid to do it, would have kicked it out in less than 2 years, and we took 6.
But at least it's done now.
Yep.
For everybody's consumption out there.
We're supposed to update it in 3 years.
Ooh.
Those
would be the calls that you're like, I'm out skiing, right?
Yeah, powder day.
So, as far as doing fun stuff, so tell me, what are you doing this weekend?
Formula One.
Who are you cheering for?
Oh, I look for different drivers. There's 1 or 2 I don't like to see up front, but yeah, I look at Leclerc, Leclerc versus Vettel, because Leclerc's really good. Vettel's come back. I mean, Hamilton's going to be going for the win, but also he'll probably end up being the champion because he's got to beat Bottas by 3. He's got to have 3 more points, and then there's no more points in the system. Bottas is great to watch when he's head-to-head with Hamilton. Verstappen, like last year, he started 18th, came 2nd.
Yeah.
So Verstappen is a guy to watch, and I always like Kimi, but his car's not so fast these days.
I'm curious to see if Lewis Hamilton during his pole drives completely off the track again and just completely, because the video from I think it was last year or year before last when he did his pole, he was pretty much just jumping the curbs. He was like.
So the brilliant thing last year, I mean, my son is the head of the performance program at Circuit of America, so I go with him and we go to the whole program. And last year it was great because on the Friday it was racing in the rain. There was a lot of rain, and watching those F1 cars go around the curves, especially turn 2, in the rain is incredible.
Yeah.
So they were unable to set their cars up for dry conditions, and that made for a great race. And Kimi was smart because he started on soft tires and he was P2. So he took the lead and then he managed to build enough of a gap. He won in a Ferrari last year.
Another great race, another great year out there. Do you go to the concerts afterwards?
No, too old for that.
Have you been up in the elevator yet?
Yeah, I've been up there.
Oh, okay. To me, it always seems like every major event, it's broken.
No, I went up there.
I've been up there a couple of times.
I've been different places there.
Yeah. Well, John, thank you so much for joining us. I really do appreciate it. Thanks for everybody that's watching out there in the internet world. If you guys won't, be sure to follow John on LinkedIn. Also look at the websites,
DSAroadmap.org.
DSAroadmap.org. And
DSABOK.org.
DSABOK.org.
DeWardt.com.
And DeWardt.com.
DEWARDT.com.
And if you are looking to be able to get some consulting done and be able to increase your revenue from $500 million to $2 billion in less than 2.5 years, he's the gentleman to be able to do it and help you out there. So, guys, thank you guys so much for watching. John, thanks for being on the show. And be sure to tune in tomorrow. We're going to have Jeff Lassiter from Kinetic Upstream talking about their new rotary steerable technology that they are coming out with, as well as the current state of directional drilling / rotary steerables. And next week, we will be actually having part of the IADD is having their annual rotary steerable forum in Houston. Be sure to go and check the website for more information. And as always, guys, know your industry.